Hi there, I'm Fraser Edwards and I'm trying to find the best guitars for shred. Aren't all guitars just a plank of wood with some metal strings and pickups? Yes. But some guitars look cooler than others, some guitars sound better than others, and some guitars are easier to play than others, and that's what we're going to be focusing on in this video. I've been looking for guitars that are ergonomically designed and that allow maximum economy of motion, meaning that you can play faster, easier. My songs are super fast and difficult, and that's okay in the studio because I can take as many takes as I want, but when I play live, I have to get it right the first time, and since my music's already difficult, I don't want to put any more barriers in my way. I need to find the fastest guitar in the world. So I've done loads of research trying to find the best guitar for shred. I've contacted loads of guitar companies, I've spoken to many other guitarists, and most importantly, I've been to guitar shops to try out loads of different models, and I've narrowed it down to the models which I think are the most ideal for shred and playing fast. So this is the Edwards ECY165 CTM, and this is the nicest looking guitar in the world. And that's just fact, scientific fact. Every guitar should look like this, if you think about it. There's really no excuse for other guitars not looking like this. The really cool fretboard design, the quilted maple top, it looks awesome, but it's very hard to know where you are on the fretboard when you're playing in a dark venue, which is going to make you a bit hesitant sometimes and not exactly be helpful with playing fast. This guitar looks good, it sounds good. I'm not quite sure whether it plays as good as it looks and sounds. I've had this guitar set up by the same person who's set up my other guitars, and I asked for the action to be as low as possible. And never in all the time I've had it has this guitar been as easy to play as my other guitars. Maybe it's just the way the instrument's built, it's not possible to get the action low enough, or whether it's just one of those guitars that's not super awesome to play fast. It is still a great guitar though. It sounds as good as any of the other guitars on this list. It stays in tune pretty well, and it is pretty damn good for shredding on too. I just wouldn't say it has the edge over any of the other guitars in this video in that department. Some of the guitars, it's pretty tough to say which is better or worse than the others, though I can say for the super hyper fast shred that I do, this is just not as good as the others on this list. It's certainly nowhere near as nice to play as the Strandberg or even some of the others. Nonetheless though, it certainly belongs on this list and it's an absolute shred beast. With all that being said, this actually has the nicest Floyd Rose I've ever used. It's just completely abusable. So these guitars are made in Japan and they were only ever available in Japan. They're unfortunately not made anymore, which is a great tragedy, but nonetheless that does at least make it all the more valuable to me. So this is the ESP LTD Deluxe MH1000 ET. It's an Evertune model, and it's pretty much just a standard electric guitar. There's no sort of gimmicks, apart from obviously the Evertune, if you can call it a gimmick. I mean it's hard to say, but I think in future, not all guitars, but like 50% of guitars should be made with Evertune bridges or something similar, because it's amazing. It just literally doesn't go out of tune. And you can set it up so that even if you bend the strings, they don't go out of tune, like that. Or you can set it so that they bend as much as you like. And it's just like super effective. It brings my recording sessions, you know, what used to take 6 hours to record rhythm guitars for one song now takes me 20, 30 minutes. Simply because tuning was always such an annoying thing. You know, you would play it perfectly in perfect time, but the tuning would be off just because of the nature of guitars. But with an Evertune, another great thing is I've done a few tours with this, and I tuned my guitar once on the entire tour each time, and that was enough. It just,
uses some sort of physics gimmick to stay perfectly in tune. So what's not to love about that? That feels super nice to play on because I just got it set up yesterday, and it's a good point I should make. You might not need to buy some fancy new guitar. You might just need to have your guitar properly set up. So the action before in this was incredibly high because I'd been using 11 gauge strings for years when it had come as factory sort of set up for 10 gauge strings. So the extra strain on the neck meant I could only lower the action so low without getting fret buzz. And now that that's all been adjusted by a professional, the whole thing just feels so much nicer. And it's, you know, as I say, it's not got any crazy gimmicks. It's just a solid guitar, and I think everyone, if you're a professional, you should definitely get an Evertune guitar. So as far as Evertune guitars go, there's not a whole lot of choice, and this is the one I found as an Evertune that is good for me to play fast on. I love it. There's not really much sort of gimmicks to talk about. It's a neck through. It's got EMG pickups, which I love, and it's just an absolutely solid guitar. Tested on the road, in the studio, it's a workhorse, and I would definitely recommend trying one. I love it so much, I have the 7-string version, the exact same guitar and the exact same finish, more or less, which is kind of boring, but they just work. They're just absolute workhorses. So I absolutely love the ESP LTD Deluxe MH1000 ET. So this is the Jackson DK2M, and I played one of these many years ago. My friend had one, and I always thought it was one of the best guitars I've ever played. Very ergonomic and good for playing live, and it sounded great. And I managed to track one down for this video. I did try a lot of modern Jacksons in guitar shops and even higher end ones, and they just didn't seem to have the same optimization for playing fast. And that could be because, you know, they probably weren't set up very well coming straight from the factory to the guitar shop. It's always useful to have your guitar set up by a professional to have everything optimized for playing fast. So it could be that those modern guitars and the latest ones are just as good or better. If you compare the specs, you can see that they're almost identical to this. This is a model that was just produced from 2006 to 2010, and it's great. I love it. I have to say, some of the string intonation isn't great, but this is a sort of a mid-range guitar, and if there's one thing that I've noticed, it's that the more money you spend on the guitar, the better the tuning stability tends to be. So given the similarity of the specs between this and the more modern ones, I'm willing to bet that a well set up modern Jackson, especially a higher end one, is going to be just as good for shredding on as this. And indeed, they're very popular amongst guitar shredder players. So I think this one's great. It's a mid-range guitar, and you do get some great mid-range guitars, but a lovely fretboard that is definitely not too fat, and yeah, it's just a great choice. So this guitar is the Ibanez RGT42. Ibanez's are renowned for having the world's fastest guitars, with many people attributing this to their ultra-thin Super Wizard necks.
And to my knowledge, there are not currently any guitar companies that make thinner necks than Ibanez. And Ibanez guitars have been used by some of the best shredders in the world, from Steve Vai to Joe Satriani to Dragon Force and many, many others. I've owned a few Ibanezes in my time, and I've tried out many others over the years and recently for this video. And while the guitars I've tried in music shops might have fared better or worse depending how they're set up, rendering any comparison I draw to not entirely be fair in the strictest scientific sense, I do not believe I've played a guitar any more ideal for shred than this model. This is the Ibanez RGT42 Black Pearl from the mid-2000s. And though I have to say, one of the newer Ibanez models I tried, the Ibanez Prestige RG5170, was comparable, though not comparable enough for me to include it in this list. I've owned this guitar for many years and have made a couple of mods, though nothing that will affect the playability. The fretwire of this guitar is not very tall, which means your fingers are always touching the wood, which creates more friction and so is not ideal for speed. Kind of like the opposite of being a scalloped fretboard. So scalloped fretboards, for those who don't know, is when the fretboard wood between the metal wire is sort of dug out, so there's a bevel or a dip between the frets, which means you don't get as much friction when you play. So in theory, it should make you be able to play faster. The back of the neck of this guitar is super glossy and slidey. I've played guitars in the past that are raw wood or have certain finishes on them which are not conducive to speed, whereas this is just comfortable, frictionless magic. What's interesting is the width of the last fret is only 56mm, whereas most Ibanez necks are 58mm wide. In many ways, this guitar just seems to slightly edge other guitars that I own when it comes to being easy or nice to play on. I contacted a lot of companies to ask them which guitar they would recommend for shred and playing fast. Strandberg recommended the Bowden Prague NX6. So the Strandberg Bowden Prague 6 is insanely awesome for shred. When I first played it, I was a bit caught off guard by the triangular shaped neck and the light weight, the fact that it looks like a toy, and it's so light. And the slanted frets made me look like I wasn't wearing my glasses or something. It was really weird. But honestly, within about 15 minutes of playing it, I was playing faster than I'd ever played before. It's really insane. I was able to play just like super hard things that I've not been able to play in years or indeed ever before. So I was pretty much astounded. Moving around the fretboard, it's just like my fingers are moving through butter, like melted butter. If it was normal butter, they probably couldn't move very fast at all, now that I think about it. So to sum up about the Strandberg, it challenges a lot of misconceptions I've held about guitars for many years. I always believed that thinner necks let you play faster and a thicker body made it a better and more resonant tone. These things, commonly held beliefs amongst many people, they seem logical, yet Strandberg has managed to completely contradict them with its super ergonomic endure necks, and it's just awesome, brilliant sound. Playing a guitar can be a very personal and subjective thing, and some people might prefer the feel of an Ibanez super wizard neck to the Strandberg. But on the models I've played, I have to say I was a little disappointed by the thin sound of the Ibanez Prestige and the RGs and a lot of those models that I played. And I was very excited and surprised by the openness of the Strandberg and its ability to cut through the mix. So even if the necks are kind of similar in terms of speed on the Strandberg and the Ibanez's, I'd say see which one you prefer. But for me, given the fact that I think this Strandberg sounds a bit better and I love the neck, I have to go with this one personally. Given that the ability to play fast is really just being able to play more efficiently,
with fewer barriers in the way between the sound that's in your head and the sound that actually comes out of the guitar and the amplifier, I have to say that this is not only the best guitar for playing fast, it's the best guitar.
So in the future, I'd like to make another version of this video in perhaps a year or two, going further in depth with the science behind what makes guitars more shreddable and ergonomic. It would be great to have all the guitars set up by the same person to make the comparisons fairer. Guitars tend to not come up set up as new out of the factory. And when you purchase a new guitar, it would cost the guitar shop an extra £70 or so to set up the instrument, which in some cases for beginner or mid-range guitars will significantly eat into or completely obliterate any profit margins. And that's really a shame, because I believe that a well set up instrument can be the difference between a kid becoming the next Yngwie Malmsteen or just giving up completely because it's literally impossible to play something on a particularly badly set up instrument. And speaking of Yngwie Malmsteen, I'd also love to play a scalloped fretboard. I've never done that, which is preposterous. A huge part of being able to play fast is how low the action is, and with certain guitars, it's possible to get the action much lower than others. I'd love to talk to guitar luthiers and designers in the future and find out what characteristics of guitars help or hinder the action from getting as low as possible. As much as I talk about wishing I could be a bit more scientific with this in the future, I think that playing these instruments, you can immediately tell which is better or worse for playing on. Even some of the logic behind what makes a guitar more ergonomic doesn't always correlate with which one is just nicer and easier to play. Like the Strandberg, for instance, which massively surprised me. So much of this video is based on my opinion and is in no way conclusive or absolute, but it's what I reckon, so...